Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the event safety and information briefing video for this coming weekend's Max Adventure Race on the beautiful Sunshine Coast. Before we get started, I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the traditional custodians upon whose land we will be meeting and acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. Number one thing I want to cover off in the event safety and briefing video is safety, unsurprisingly. The number one safety aspect for this course in particular is that you will be traveling along a lot of fire trails and roads through the forest. All those roads are open to the general public and will have traffic traveling along them. There could be some forward drivers, there could be some trail bike riders, all those sort of people utilize the forest, especially on sunny weekend days. They have as much right to be on the trails as you do. We do not have exclusive use of the trails, so please pay attention when we're moving around those other users. You will likely hear them before you see them, so make sure you always are staying to the left of any trail you're on, riding in single file and looking out for those other users. Normally what happens is if they're out for a ride or a drive through the forest and they see an event happening, they'll move to another part of the forest where we aren't, but just be aware that those other users could be out there. The other important thing to consider for this coming weekend is that we are operating in an active logging area. There is some work taking place harvesting some of the pine forest. The course has been designed to avoid those areas and not have you traveling through where that logging is taking place. The logging doesn't take place on weekends either, but there will be trucks and machinery in those areas. So the course has been designed to avoid those areas, but if you do find yourself slightly off track and in an area which is being harvested, you'll see there's plenty of logs, plenty of pine logs that have been chopped down and are stacked up ready to be transported. We recommend retracing your steps, relocating yourself. There is not any checkpoints in those areas or need to travel through those locations. On top of that, just to confuse the issue a little bit further, where they have recently been logging and have cleared the area totally of trees, there are still some signs left over indicating that there's logging in operation, you're not allowed access, those sort of things. Those signs are remnants of where they were working in that area. They aren't actually applicable for this weekend. So please ignore those signs in those locations. You'll see it when you get to it on the bike leg that there's a massive area that's recently been cleared and there's not a tree in sight. That's the area they're referring to with those signs you'll see around that location. An important safety thing as well is that you are in teams of two and you must stay together at all times. The rule in adventure racing is 100 meters. You can't be more than 100 meters apart. We recommend being a lot closer than that. More like 10 to 20 meters apart is what the best teams do. So they are communicating with each other and helping each other with the navigation and things like that. Staying close together means that if you do get into any difficulty on course, your first point of call will be your teammate who will be available to assist you. If you require further assistance, what you can do is grab another team that's passing along and ask them to pass your details on to at the next transition area or event marshal, where they'll be able to phone us and we'll be able to initiate the appropriate first aid response. There is a first aid team allocated to the event who is available to go out on course if needed. If there's no other teams coming past and you need to contact us, there is the emergency numbers printed on your map. So have a look at that, grab that phone number, give us a call. There is good mobile coverage over the vast majority of the course. The one area where it's a little bit sketchy is towards the kayak area, but then there's staff members at that kayak launch point if you do get into difficulty in that area. Another important aspect, and this might sound unusual, you must wear shoes at all times. Wearing shoes when riding and when running makes perfect sense, but teams do want to, at times, take their shoes off when kayaking to avoid them getting wet. You will be getting your feet wet and muddy when getting into and out of the kayaks. Just the nature of the location we're using means you need to get down into some of the mangrove mud to get your kayak launched, and when it comes back in, and depending on the tide, you could be having to take a couple of steps through the mud. Who knows what's in that mud? There's normally a bunch of little stumps. There could be rocks, oysters, old oysters, shells, things like that. They could easily cut your feet open. So you must wear shoes whenever you are kayaking. The weather on Saturday is looking to be quite warm, and it's been quite warm this week, to the point that when I was out course marking, I actually came across a little red belly black snake on the course. If there's one snake about, that means there could well be others. So pay attention to that. Best way to avoid them is don't be the first team. Let the quick teams go ahead and scare them away before you go through. Also, with it being warm, means you need to carry plenty of water with you. Make sure you have at least 2 litres per person out on course. There's no options to fill up. You need to be self-sufficient for the duration of the course. So if you're going to be out there for 5 or 6 hours, you might well need more than 2 litres per person. So make sure you stock up sufficiently, bottles on your bike and in your backpack as well with the rest of your mandatory gear. All of you should have received a copy of the event program that was sent to all registered teams. If you haven't seen that, it is available under the latest news section of the website. Make sure you have a good read of that before Saturday. It contains all the information you need to know about how to get to the event, what time things start, what time bike drop opens, and things like that. I mentioned bike drop there for all classic and novice teams. Before coming to registration, you need to head to the bike drop location and drop off your bikes. Drop off your bikes if you're using clip-in shoes, leave them with your bikes, your helmets, things like that. Everything though that you leave at bike drop, you must take with you once you go through there. So don't go leaving a whole bunch of excess food and water thinking that you'll just top up and then leave that there. Everything must go when you go through the bike drop location. So go to the bike drop, drop off your bike, then head over to registration. Just take care when dropping off your bikes and then when parking for other users. There's a lot of other people in the event and they'll be moving around where you're parking and or dropping off your bikes. So pay attention to any directions from our event staff or volunteers, and also just be conscious of those other users and drive safely. When you come along to registration, you'll need to know your team number. Your team number is attached to the email that this video is attached to. So look up your team number, come along to registration, and then just collect your corresponding race bag. Within that will be your map, your course description, timing chip, race bibs, a wristband if you want to use that to attach your timing chip to your wrist, all those sort of things. So collect your bag, move away from the registration area to plot your course. If you have any questions, come back and see us at registration and we're more than happy to help. There's normally some little tips written on the course description or on the welcome letter, some course setters notes, which might make your day that much easier as well. So a common mistake teams do is looking at the map but not looking at the course description. You really want to look at the two of them in conjunction to help determine what order you're doing the different activities, what checkpoints you need to do, all those sort of things. Another little tip for those of you that have listened this far into the video for this event is the fabled Sunshine Coast blue banded trees. What do I mean by that? Is that in the pine forest, to help identify where the tracks are located that go through the forest, and these are the tracks that are indicated on your map, they will paint a blue band around the outside of the pine tree. There'll be one on each side. In between that is the track. They are indicated on your map, a lot of those tracks. Some of them are very overgrown and you'll look at them and think they aren't tracks, but they are, and they are included there to help you with your navigation. The checkpoints are all located in areas where you can get to relatively easily without doing any bashing through lantana or things like that. So if you are approaching a checkpoint from a certain direction and the track is very overgrown and very hard to travel along, there might be an easier way to approach it. So approach it from a different direction. It might be a little bit longer in terms of distance, but then it will end up being quicker because you're not bashing through Lantana for ages. Just circling back quickly to the kayaking, as I mentioned, you need to be wearing your shoes at all times when kayaking. There is a short carry from where the kayak trailer is located. You need to take your kayak from there to the launch point, and then when you finish the kayak leg, bring it back to the kayak trailer as well. It's about 20 meters from the kayak trailer to the water's edge. If you do have, the kayak's a two-person lift. If you do have younger team members, please ask another team that might be there at the same time to assist you, or grab one of the friendly Max Adventure staff there and they'll be happy to help you out. Don't just leave your kayaks when you're finished down on the bank. You need to pick them up and bring them back to the kayak trailer. That's all for now. Remember, for you novice course teams, the novice course navigation tips and tricks session will take place in person before the race starts. So make sure you come along and register and then attend that if you've got any concerns about the navigation. For you classic course teams, unfortunately, you don't get that luxury, but we hope all teams have a restful last couple of days and we'll see you bright and early on Saturday. Thanks very much.